At the end of our farmstead here, we've got 17.5 acres carved out. That's our old farmstead here in our house, and the machine shed, a couple grain bins that we dry corn in. And at the end of it was 4 acres that squared off the little piece that we bought from my dad. And I thought, why are we leaving this 4 acres in a big field? You know, it's nicely squared off. It's a good area, nicely drained, good quality. You know, so we moved the garlic out there, and that's when we decided, hey, let's put asparagus out here too and make this the produce area. So as we look across it here, the first trench, second trench, and then we'll make the third trench here next. First trench is on the edge of the existing asparagus patch. So that was trenched into kind of a cover crop, a mix of grass and some clovers and stuff. Pretty mellow soil. It's nice. Once I got past where I was adjusting the depth here and got too deep, it's really good loamy soil. It's nice condition. And then we moved over to here, and we had an existing fence here from when we pastured cattle on the hayfield side here. So we pulled that fence out this spring, and I disked this area twice. Then we spread manure on it, and then we chisel plowed the manure in, and then I disked it again, and then I ran over it with a field cultivator twice, just as soil prep, because you got to try and break these sods up to kill the grass. But anyway, there was a good amount of compaction in where this fence row is, and you can see it. It's just indicative by these slabs of dirt that were. This isn't too bad. You know, this falls apart here. When you get into really hard compaction, what they call a hard pan, you know, it can be about 6 inches down, 8 inches down. It's almost impenetrable for a plant root too. So I don't think we're seeing that, but it did really make for a messy furrow down here because we've got big chunks in the bottom. I think Mother Nature will have to remediate these for us. So, but anyway, we'll see what the next trench turns out like, because that'll be going right into what was the hayfield here. So. Yeah, so we just spaced these out, and this is just my spacing. I don't know that I'd recommend it, but I'm 8 foot on center on the rows. I like 8 foot. I have the space to go 8 foot. It works good for me to mow in between since we're organic. We also had to take time to kind of design a trencher, and that's the biggest thing. You know, you either have to make your own trencher. I think they make one, but you know, I don't know. Mine, I had scrap metal laying around and some parts, and probably cost me $500 worth of steel, and they probably sell for about $3,500. So if you can make one, you have a tractor, or if you know somebody with one. This one actually is turning out pretty good. I'm happy with the design. The design was based on old scrap metal I had, so it's mother necessity, right? So, but it seems to be doing pretty good. I would like to speed up, but I don't think I'm gonna. It's just that would just be for fun and could potentially drive the trencher deeper, and I don't want to do that because we've got a good depth on it right now. So, but the tilt of the soil is really nice down here. So, as you can see, the lay of the land right here is nice, and we've got a good area for drainage coming up down through the middle right here. Both sides are drained. The asparagus roots won't ever be standing in water. We know the seasonal high water table around here is nowhere near where we're going to be up here. So, so we've got good drainage. We don't have to worry about those types of things. Like my friend Annie says, it'd be a good place for an orchard or a vineyard where you don't have water standing. This is hard rock phosphate, and not hard rock phosphate, but rock phosphate, and we try and put about I don't remember what the exact recommendations are, but about 100 pounds to the acre in the trench. You can put it in the trench or you can bulk spread it for asparagus, but phosphorus is probably your number one nutrient for establishing asparagus. Probably the most important nutrient to get out there. So we're going to bulk it up, put it in the trench. This is rock phosphate, which is organic. If you're not organic, you can use monoammonium phosphate, diammonium phosphate, or triple superphosphate. They're all good sources of available phosphorus. This stuff won't leach, whereas some of the commercial products will. So we're just going to sprinkle this right down in before we plant the crowns over the top of it. We're planting two varieties today. This one's Millennium. It's a green asparagus. I have not grown it in the past. Our existing stand out here is Jersey Giant. It was 10,000 Jersey Giants. We're putting in 1,000 of the Millennium today. They'll be the 2 rows closest to the hay. And in the first row here, closest to our existing stand, we're putting a variety called Purple Passion. Purple Passion, I mean, the crowns are indistinguishable. You can't tell any difference there. They all look the same. But Purple Passion is a purple asparagus. The yield is supposed to be significantly lower than the green asparagus that we grow. Millennium is supposed to be probably the highest yielder in Minnesota, you know, the upper northern climates up here. So we're going to try 1,000 of those, 2 rows of those. Our Jersey Giants have been great. Yield's been good on them, you know, once we kind of got a little hang on the annual fertilization and stuff. But if we were to take a look at the crowns here today, these things are shipped in bundles like this. And so when I say crowns, this here is an asparagus crown. Looks kind of like an octopus. And they'll bundle them together here in bundles and box them up in wax boxes. So this is a 2-year-old plant. It's harvested from the supplier in a dormant stage. So the crown right here is where the roots grow down from and the shoots grow up from. And that's really what we want to get 12 inches deep in the soil, that crown. Because then it can grow down from there, grow up. There'll be feeder roots that grow in the shallower areas, and that's where they'll take in moisture and a lot of the minerals that feed the plant. So, you know, you want to take a look at these. They need to be healthy when you get them out. So if you break open one of the roots here, it needs to be white. And there you go. I'm glad it is. So that's maybe we should have checked that earlier, right? Yeah. But you know, if you look at some of these are already sprouting, and they just came out of the cooler on Monday and sat in my shed. And it's Thursday today, so a couple of these are sprouting already. So they need to get in the ground and get covered up as soon as possible. See, you want to have good moisture in there, even if they've got to sit not in a cooler for a few days. Usually it isn't a problem as long as there's a little moisture in there and they don't get too moldy. There's a little bit of white surface mold on some of these. Usually not an issue at all. So we'll hope it's not an issue at all. One of the methods of weed management or cover crop establishment is to till right over the row in an existing stand. Like say we get too much thistles or something and it's just not manageable anymore. Since we don't spray, since we're organic and we don't spray, you can go in before the asparagus starts to come up in the spring and do a light tillage over the top and try and break up those things and then reestablish a cover crop if you want. But if you till too deep and you get down and you hit this, you'll kill that asparagus plant. So that's another reason these things need to be 12 inches deep. So you can't damage the crown. If this thing starts to shoot up some spears and you run over it with the tiller, you're just going to cut the spears, which is the same thing we're going to do once they come out of the ground anyway. So it's not a big deal. You just can't damage the crown. Optimal spacing is 12 inches in between plants, and that's for consistent diameter of spear that you're going to harvest. And you know, you want a spear about as big as your finger, as big as your thumb, something like that. We shoot for 12 inches because if I throw a tape measure on this thing, the longest one might be 14, but it's about 12 inches. So it's kind of easy to manage that way. There's another more complex way of planting that people used to lay these out like an octopus and spread it out like that. Get all those roots here. Maybe, I don't know, we'll get these out of the way here. There we go. So you can go and splay each one out like this. And it's kind of called an octopus method of planting. If you've got a lot of extra time on your hands, you could do that. I guess here where we're just trying to get them in the ground, get them covered up, you know, by some moist soil. It's not that it's a bad procedure at all. In fact, who's to say? I'm not sure there's any studies. It might be better. But what we do know is laying them end to end like this establishes a really good stand, and we haven't seen a reason to take that extra time. Nobody's really quantified whether or not it's better or not. So not that I know of anyway. But a lot of this evidence is anecdotal. Somebody might have anecdotal evidence where, hey, I planted a row splayed out, they're better. Well, okay. You know, that's a good thing about farming. You can try a lot of different things if you want. And if you got a little time, you might as well try a couple of different things. So we're going to lay these all out end to end like this today. That's the most time efficient thing that we can do. We've got 10 rows of asparagus out here, about 485-foot rows. This is roughly an acre. It's a little smaller than an acre. 10,000 plants in an acre is kind of what we assume. So we're going to go down and pick one of these rows today. My son was out here at about 6:30 in the morning harvesting. When the days get above 80, we try and harvest early like that. This row was actually harvested at 6 o'clock yesterday, and it's now 11 o'clock in the morning, and those 5 hours really just made a lot of this unsaleable asparagus because it'll start to open up on the top. We should have been out here 5 hours ago, but in those 5 hours we got 1,600 crowns of asparagus planted right in the adjacent row here. So now we're going to walk down and I will show you how I harvest, and it's the same as some people and it's different than other people. We hand snap everything, so and then we'll come through. Since it's about 11 o'clock, it's hard to say. You know, if we're looking at this asparagus right here, maybe 10 inches, he'll snap about here at about 8 inches. I would probably leave him for another day. The problem is when asparagus gets tall like this, it's going to start to open up here, and these small seeds will appear. And that, while that's still a very edible asparagus, it's not very appealing to some of the white tablecloth restaurants. It's fine. We take them to market. I like to try to pick them before they get to this stage. So I think at 6 this morning we would have been better. This one is a little better. So plus, when it gets this hot, and I think it's right around 80 degrees right now, the asparagus becomes more pliable and doesn't snap as easily. So when we take ours, we want to break it where it's a soft point. So we don't take any of this that has a woody stem on it. That all stays in the field. So this is 100% edible asparagus right to the bottom. Very, very juicy, good quality stuff. We'll walk down this row and throw it in a bag, just a regular bag like this. As I go, I throw them all in one direction, and there's little things you can do to really speed up cleaning and packing and everything. Putting asparagus one direction in a bag is huge. My asparagus patch is about 10 years old, so you'll see while it was planted in exactly a row, it's moved out 12 to 16 inches both directions, which makes for a little longer reach harvesting. So this one here has been seeded out too long. So a lot of that stuff, if we're not going to pack that in a saleable bundle, it goes right here. We just leave it. So sometimes when you're harvesting produce and we harvest by hand, we do a little sorting right in the field. There. The other thing is, I don't know how well you can hear on there, but this first one snapped kind of loud. like that. Sometimes that's an indication of a woody stem. After you've harvested about, I don't know, 10 to 20 million of these, you'll be able to tell those, and you get rid of them in the field because you can't see them when you're sorting them in the packing shed. So they look just the same. But there's some that the skin's really hard on them, just toss them down. So if you see me sorting and throwing some on the ground, it's just an experiential thing that I know that one is not a good asparagus, not one I'd like to sell. Every asparagus I put in somebody's bag, I want to be good. It'd be one I'd eat. On a hot day like this, we want to get this asparagus out of the sun once it's picked. It can heat up in the bag, so we bag it up, and then we get them inside and get it immerse it into cold water as quick as we can. A little shot of that. And then we stand it in cold water, so it's actually drawing the cold water up into the vascular system. And we harvest for about 8 weeks out here with varying degrees of yield. On a good warm day like this 10,000 plants will get us around 100 pounds. 100 pounds a day. The start of the season, we were getting maybe 25 to 30 pounds until the soil warmed up. And then once the soil warmed up, then everything starts to shoot. The asparagus, I chose it as a crop to grow because if it gets hailed out or absolutely destroyed, frozen, whatever, it's going to come back. It'll come back. You'll have, when we got frozen out on Mother's Day, we were out of asparagus for 8 days. After 8 days, the production came back with an absolute vengeance, and we had tons of asparagus. So we've had it get hailed off. It's a little bit of a hassle with management, because you got to make sure you got the ones with the hail bruises out of there. So a lot of times we'll mow it with a lawnmower. Just let it come again. And when you mow with a lawnmower, 3 to 4 days and you'll be back out here picking. But the resiliency of the crop is magnificent. So I try not to stack these too heavy in here. So that's about enough for one bag, because now it's going to sit here for roughly 5 minutes in the sun while I finish this row and pick the other one, and then we get it inside. So we don't want to stack them too deep. You can bruise the asparagus, and that bruised area won't keep. So if we're looking for longevity and keeping, we stand ours in water once they're cleaned and bundled, and typically that gets us 7 to 10 days of storage. Usually it's gone in 7 days, but the asparagus can be good until 10 days. You'll see them grow in exactly the same spot as they did last year in the spring. First thing, they'll grow right out the old stalk, but it's not a replicant of the stalk. It's just ease of travel coming out of the soil. So every one of these is a new shoot shot from the growing point on that crown. So the crown had those roots on when we were planting over here. That thing shoots them up like this. This right here is probably one. So I can see here's a new shoot coming maybe tomorrow. These two will be picked tomorrow. This may go another day. These were stumps that we've already picked this year. Just some old junk there that maybe was mowed off with the lawnmower. But there's a full potential that these may be from the same crown. So then once they get older, they spread out a little bit wider, and but all these old ones here are from one, possibly two crowns in this area. Nice size for a daily chore for one person. My son, when he gets home from college, he comes out and goes to work here, and then this has been an enterprise that he's been able to utilize as full-time employment till the first week of July, and it basically pays his first half of his tuition for the following college year. So it's a good amount of money. It is, it can be a little hard work, because some days when the yield is high, we'll pick at least twice this. In a single row like this now, we're going to have close to 2 bags, but we picked it where there's 6 bags in a row. So, and that's the days when you get yields of 300 pounds off this patch in a day. Those are the ones that get you in trouble, because I only have storage for about 600 pounds. Well, that's 2 days when it's maxed out. if we're looking at the complete growing cycle, what we just planted here, we want to see those come up this year and be a nice healthy foot to 2 foot, maybe, I don't know, you might see 3 foot, but you want to see good growth there. Next year we won't harvest those yet. They'll grow for a complete year. The following year we may harvest them for a couple of weeks. And then the year after that, then you could probably harvest the full season. Our season here in southern Minnesota, this year it started on April 28th. I believe I picked our first asparagus. And typically we figure that May 1st is when you're going to start. Now we did freeze out, like I said, I think it was Mother's Day, and there was 10 days we didn't have anything. We had no asparagus that came back. So that was, I don't remember what the date exactly was. It was like the 16th we started picking again, something like that. And then we'll pick till July 1st here, or whenever the closest farmer's market we have to that is. I think our market this year is on July 4th, so we'll pick right up to the 3rd. And that's about the extent of it here in Minnesota. You want 8 weeks of picking, and then the rest of the season needs to be letting the plant put the root reserves on, because they'll grow up about this tall, and then they'll fern out, is what they call it. Kind of spreads out on top, it makes ferns, and then you just leave those, and they basically regenerate your root stock, because we're depleting the energy from the root as we harvest for 8 weeks by taking all those spears off. So then you give it the rest of the year to replenish the energy in the plant, and you don't cut anything off the top while it's green. Once it all dies naturally, the end of the season, and the plant is physiologically dead, the tops are or dormant, then you can take all those off. But other than that, when we quit harvesting the 1st of July, that's it. We leave those plants, we don't touch them. But yeah, so we get about 2 months, 2 months give or take how the freezes go. So it's kind of a place of solace almost to come out here by yourself and harvest. So this is an old hog barn that we haven't had hogs in since '99, I think. And it was a beautiful barn, so we needed a way to repurpose it. So anyway, now it's a multi-purpose building, and in this room, here's where we clean the asparagus. So we try and come in, and this is my son Vaughn. Hello. And keep your field bags this way. We try and do dirty to clean, coming around this way. And field bags come in here. So Vaughn will take a field bag up here, cut it open with the scissors, and dump it right into some cold water. So we run fresh cold water right here. And then basically, the only sorting we do, since it's all hand snapped, is a little bit by diameter, right, Vaughn? So just size, because some of our restaurants want an extra large asparagus. So we'll go through and you'll grab out asparagus that would be qualified as large. Weigh it out. We weigh out bundles of roughly 15.5 ounces on the scale. And then is this, we need a few more with this one. This is just general picking here. So we'll take a few more here, watch the scale. And then at this point we sort too. Sometimes we'll pull out the ones that have a little seeding on them. But if we get to this point, then we'll take a rubber band, and there's 1 pound right on the money. Stand them up a little bit like this. One has 2 cases going here, one of larges and then one of just general size. Yep. So we stand those up, try and even up the bottom. In the cases here, there's going to be about 1 inch of water in the bottom. We stand it up in that cold water. If we're a little warm coming in from the field, it's going to draw that cold water up into it and cool the plant down nice and gently, And then once we get these done, they fit 15 pounds in a case, wax line cases, also with a can liner in it, so that they hold the water. And then we'll close these up, and we put a little sticker. Here you go, Minnesota grown. We'll put a date on it. If they're large, we put an L on it, and that's it. And then we go over here. I guess you just stack them here until you get them all full, right? On the day's picking. So then we're over to here, clean cases, and then we take them from here, and we go right out. And this cooler can hold 15 cases, 5 cases on each shelf. Was a marvelous purchase. So old refrigerators hold 4. You can cut them out and leave 1 shelf in. And if you get the wrong one with an ice maker here, they only hold 3. So while they aren't very efficient, they're cheap. And you can usually find these for about 50 bucks. This cost us used at a used restaurant supply. It cost us $850. We brought it home and immediately shorted out a relay on the back, and it cost another $150 to fix it. But still, at $1,000 bucks, this is long outlasted. I've thrown away probably 6 refrigerators since we got this, because these old refrigerators, they only last 3 to 5 years, you know, because you buy them, they're old, they're junk, you bang them around, and it is. But if we can find another pop cooler like this, it's perfect for these this size. I can't remember what it is, half bushel? Yeah, half bushel boxes to fit 15 pounds in. So we've got 15 cases of 15 pounds in here. I've got that refrigerator, 3 other refrigerators like it up at the house. That'll just about get us a week. And if we can get a couple deliveries during the course of the week, that kind of maps it out. Schmidt Farm, as it's aptly named, since generations of Schmidts have lived here, it was established in 1905 by my great-great-grandpa, and our family has farmed here ever since, in some form. My grandpa farmed here, my dad, my uncle, and my grandpa's grandpa before him. And they established this point, instead of going to flatter ground that you could crop, because there was water here, and there was good clean water here. And that's been one of the things it's been always in the back of our mind as farmers. We want to keep that water clean. You know, my dad farmed biologically. My wife and I moved back here in 1995, and we were raising hogs with my father and some crops. We were what's called farrow to finish. We did hogs all the way from breeding the sow to having the piglets all the way to market. And we had about 120 hogs or sows, and the accountant said, well, that's not enough, you got to get bigger. So we put up 3 confinement barns down the road and filled them right before the great hog market collapse in 1998. And at that point, we had leveraged $500,000 of operating and lost all our machinery, all our inventory, everything, through some very intellectually sound manipulation. My father was able to refinance the land, so we kept the land, kept the farm. We were only allowed to refinance in my name on some of it. The lenders felt my father was too old. I was young, so we did. We stayed. We kept those hog barns and started contract finishing in those. It was the only way we were going to be able to stay on the farm and have a functional cash flow there at that point. We were growing about 500 broilers, chickens a year. We had eggs. We sold some pigs directly off the farm, anything to get cash back. And in 1999, I said to my wife, I said, hey, do you mind if we try to certify organic? She said, well, what are you thinking? I said, I'm thinking we can't get any brokers. So we did. So we took our first 250 acres and certified it organic, and we now run 850 acres certified organic. We still custom raise hogs in those barns. We utilize the manure from that on the organic ground as fertilizer. At some point in there, my son was pretty young, and he's 22 now. I started growing garlic. I bought a 20-pound bag of seed garlic from a guy named Joel Gerard, and planted it out behind these trees here, and it was 350 cloves, and all 350 of them grew. And that never happens when you're a farmer. You don't have 100% emergence, 100% harvest, but I did. So I started growing garlic, and it opened the door to the fact that maybe we can do some produce on a profitable scale. So after 3-4 years of growing that, I had enough saved that we went to some small farmers markets, and then at one point we moved out into an actual field with the garlic. We got into asparagus, and we chose that because of its resiliency, because of the fact that if it gets hailed on, we just mow it off and let it come again. If it freezes, we just mow it off and let it come again. And we wanted something like that. And I know Jerry Ford always talks about, I want something that rich people like, and it thrives on neglect. So there's a little bit of that to be said too, because we always seem to have a lot going on this farm. It's interesting because we've always kind of invested ourselves in a long-term adventure. Like the most recent one is that farmhouse we bought down here with 60 acres of wood. We remodeled the entire house by ourselves. My wife ramped up her flock of Icelandic sheep, and they moved down there. People come, and then that's its own endeavor now. And 2 years ago, we put in 5,000 hazelnuts. They won't be harvestable for 10 years, and it could be closer to 12 if the deer keep eating them off. But so we have a hazelnut potential out in the future as well. My goal would always be to work less and enjoy more things, but I guess I enjoy what I do for work, so I just don't see myself slowing down. We own 4 houses, a couple in different towns too. My hired man is a master carpenter, and I'm a how would you say it, a hobbyist carpenter, and I kind of know my way around a hammer and saw. So we do like to take on carpentry endeavors, woodworking endeavors. I'd really like to improve our capacity there to some extent. I've looked at taking one of the confinement barns. We've got a nursery out here that's a 45 wide by 169 foot long building, that if I ended its career in hogs, I've looked at possibly doing shiitake mushrooms inside. I've looked at possibly putting kilns in there for drying hardwood lumber, because the kiln demand is off the charts for small board growers, and then I could plane on the other side of it, do the planing of the lumber. I just love working with wood too. I see wood as a natural outreach of the area. I mean, if you look, there's more hardwoods down here in this corner of the state than there is in the rest of the state combined. There's a lot of softwoods up north, but down here with the silvo pasture, it's all natural. There's more beef cattle in this county than anything. Well, that also means there's more hardwood. So there's always demand for woodworking things. I enjoy working with wood, natural things. So we'll see. And when picked right, stored right, and prepared fresh, asparagus is like the filet mignon of vegetables.